Hello everyone, you're watching Let's Talk About Prepping. I'm Tyler, your host, and in this video, I'm going to talk about guns and prepping. Once again, this has been on my mind for multiple reasons that I'm sure a few of you can guess at. One of the most obvious reasons being that gun sales are at the highest that they've ever been by several different metrics. Pretty much ever, or at least in a long time by other metrics. For instance, first-time gun buyers are off the charts. Former anti-gun individuals purchasing guns, off the charts. A lot of people learning the realities of gun laws and realizing the reason that a person likes to own a gun. Well, at least one of them. The practical potential need for self-defense. That when it comes right down to it, if you ever were to need a gun, that is the last thing that you want to be without. And that's pretty much my point for today. Now, I'm not going to wax strong on my love for guns, and believe me, I love guns. I've manufactured many guns in a former job, and I've used a lot of guns throughout my life. I love guns. For sporting purposes, for stress relief purposes, and for self-defense and patriotic purposes. But what we're talking about today is that one little bit for us as people who want to prepare ourselves for whatever situations we may face. Those of us who worry about that one day when we find ourselves in that situation where we really need a hammer, or we really need a gun, or we really need some duct tape. Well, of all the situations, short of having all the food you need to get yourself by through a certain season, if you find yourself with people trying to kill you and your family, you need the ability to protect yourselves. And that's why I have friends asking me to help them buy guns again. And that's why a lot of people are purchasing guns. And that's why people like myself, and probably people like a lot of you, are reassessing your firearm situation. I've let myself go lean over the years, largely due to financial reasons. But while I've always felt comfortable with what I have, obviously in these times we always ask ourselves just how proficient we could be with the next best thing. Obviously, most of us are not going to need anything more than a shotgun that we can walk out onto our porch, shoot a couple shots into the air and scare everyone off with. But if you ever did, it'd sure be nice to have it. Anyways, basically just another rambling video about why guns are important. Just thought I'd share it with you guys. I know that most of you are probably in agreement. You know, I always try to question my own beliefs, why I think the way I do. You know, I try to put myself in the shoes of someone who disagrees with me. And for instance, with the recent protests and counter-protests here in my town, we had pretty much just a counter-protest. There was a bus of people from somewhere else that came in, you could say Antifa types. And I think they were armed, but they weren't nearly as well armed as the people in my small Idaho town. I think there were somewhere around 2,000 local dads with their AR-15s and battle vests and everything on. And they just lined the streets. They coordinated with police. It was extremely peaceful and ho-hum. I almost went down there and checked it out whenever I got off work, but honestly, I knew what I'd see. I felt like they had it taken care of. And actually, Anna sent me a link. The same group ended up going to her town, the Bust In people, and their Facebook group shared images of my town and all the guys with guns that peacefully went out and made sure that things were safe. Now, even myself, when I was like, man, there's 2,000 local bumpkins, if you will, really just a bunch of good old guys that just live around here, people's dads, local business owners that I know. But even then, you know, there's a natural worry with all those guns and all those itchy trigger fingers all gathered together. What if something went wrong? Now, obviously, this is something that went through a lot of people's minds. It even went through my mind because, like I say, I try to think of things from the perspective of others. And I had customers who came through say, I don't know that I like that there were that many guns gathered together in one place downtown. And I even said this to my own mother. Well, I mean, it's not really your place. It's not my place. You know, I mean, I said it in a loving way, but if you're not there, it's none of your business. And if you are there, that's your choice to go and surround yourself by that. But the reality is, it was safe. As we saw with the Michigan protest, that was horrible because it was going to kill people's grandmothers, and you can't protest during a pandemic. All those guys with guns, they gathered together. They were terrorists for doing that because that's intimidation. They didn't damage a single thing so far as I know or cause any violence at all. All these guns spend all year long not hurting people. And for some reason, whenever they happen to be in the same spot, they're really scary. Now, I get it, but the fact of the matter is we see that when guns gather, the safety factor goes up. And when people gather with the intent to cause disorder and violence, the safety factor goes down. So while I do put myself in the shoes of the other and go, let me make myself feel scared of guns. Let me tell myself that the more guns in one place, especially if both sides have them, the more dangerous it gets. That there has to be some danger in so many people with guns being together and being nervous. But I think that we see that the reality is, in most situations, we as Americans at least become more and more anxious about pulling the trigger, about crossing that line, the higher the stakes get in such situations. And thus, largely, an armed populace is a polite populace. I've always believed it, and I think that we see it played out more and more now. And between the desire for people to be able to defend their homes and the desire for people to be able to have that last refuge, that last resort when it comes to political things, if you have a political mob coming to hurt you, you deserve that right, that last bastion of defense. I think people are starting to realize that the world is not past needing those last bastions of defense for the individual. Anyways, thanks for listening. Just my little ramble. Get ye armed, because the world, while safer than it's ever been, is never 100% a safe place. Aren't there some pretty clouds? They really are. All right. Stay safe out there.